Welcome back. Today I thought we might talk about progressing through the Russian tech tree. I figured I would make this now since we're right around the corner from an influx of Russian players. The free paratrooper squad is going to be available around the end of the week, I think Saturday or Sunday. And I thought there might be some people who haven't played a whole lot of Russia or haven't really looked at this particular tech tree and might be wondering what's good, where to go first, all that. Mind you, I don't have every single thing in this tech tree, so I can't speak from personal experience on every weapon, but I've used almost all of them at one point or another, either picking them up or whatever. Not so much with some of the vehicles, like the IS-2 for example, but I've used it pretty extensively in War Thunder. So, I'll give you my opinion when we get there, based off of what I've seen, what it's been like fighting them, and my experiences with them in War Thunder, since they're kind of similar. But, starting from the top, there's basically 5 routes that you can go with when you initially start the tech tree. Obviously, you need to get a certain amount of these. I think it's 9 in the first tier, 7 in the second tier, so on and so forth. Little numbers marcated at the top. If it were me, I personally would start with the PPD-34s. They are low ammo count. Well, they're not super low ammo count, but for their fire rate, they feel low ammo count. It's about a 25 round magazine at 800 rounds a minute stock, and it goes higher when you upgrade it. But they're actually pretty effective submachine guns. Across the board, you'll find that the Russian submachine guns are superb at almost every BR. Moving on from there, if you think that you're going to run into problems with tanks, the PTRD is not bad until you get to the PTRS, but it'll get the job done. In my opinion, though, at low rank, most of the time, you don't have to worry too much about tanks most of the time. The players are new enough that they're willing to push. It's kind of rare that you run into a gray zone camper, and even if you do, a lot of the tanks in rank 1, 2, 3, you're not going to be able to go through the front plates of with an AT rifle, and it's not big enough to break the barrels of them. So I think your best bet for dealing with tanks is going to be explosive packs and alternative means. You might just have to leave it up to your teammates. So this is an option, but if it were me, I would start with the PPD-34, and then I would push from the PPD towards the Mosin 1938 carbine. And so, for that matter, we're going to get into the rifles here. The 1907 carbine is fine. I think the fire rate's a little bit low. And the M91 Dragoon, it's also alright. Its fire rate's a little bit low. But the 1938 carbine, that is a rifle that I use a lot. If I want a rifle with a bayonet, then this is usually my go-to rifle. They're relatively inexpensive at 500 silver. They're rank 1 weapons, so they don't cost a whole lot to upgrade. They have a good fire rate. Their damage isn't terrible. They start the same as the 1907, and you'll see this is a common damage starting point for a lot of the rifles. The M91 does a little bit more, but you pay for it with fire rate. And if you're of the persuasion to snipe, you do get access to a sniper squad and a sniper pretty early on. And for context, the M91 will come with a rifleman squad for you, and the 38 will come with an engineer squad for you. And getting your engineers early is usually pretty important. It takes a little while in the current version of Enlisted to grind out each squad. So when you're upgrading, like let's say, well, these guys are medics, so they won't work for this, but let's say you're upgrading your rifleman. it's going to take you a while to grind out your upgrades on the rifleman to put an engineer in there. So getting to the engineers here will let you get down spawn points, ammo, whatever it is that your team needs. And moreover, you're getting points every time somebody spawns on one of your rally points. So it's well worth it to place those and to have your teammates spawn on them. So looking at rank 1 then, if it were me, I would start with the PPD-34 because you can research it right off the bat. And then I would work my way towards the M38 carbine before I did anything else. After that, I would either look at tanks or planes, whatever you're more interested in. The I-153 is deceptively good. It turns very well, and it carries these RBS-82 rockets, and they can be absolutely devastating. If you have anybody on the ground marking for you, you can absolutely lay waste to the enemy with them. And those are a common weapon. We'll see them on a lot of the planes. As far as fighting other planes, because of its maneuverability, it performs fairly well. It only gets 7.62 machine guns, but it does get 4 of them, so you're going to have to sit on target for a long time. If you can manage to get a pilot snipe, you're going to get more reliable kills with it, but if you're just going to try to shoot a plane apart and take it apart, your best bet's probably to shoot for the engines and hopefully light a fire. But otherwise, you're going to be sitting on target for a long time. After that, we have the Yak-1 and the lag. The lag is foldered, so it's something that you can pursue if you really want to, but the Yak-1 is an acceptable alternative to the I-153. I personally would probably stick with the 153 over the Yak-1, but with the Yak-1 you're going to get a 20mm cannon, and you're going to get 7.92 machine guns, so it will have a little bit more hitting power against enemy aircraft. And you do get 250 kilogram bombs, and if you're very precise with them, you can take out some harder targets like tanks, but it really requires everything to go right for you. You basically need to hit the tank directly with the bomb, and then you need the tank to not move. Basically, imagine throwing an explosive pack out the window of your plane, and that's what you're trying to do. So, not exactly reliable, and due to their size, they can kill infantry, but again, it's going to be like throwing a grenade at somebody, or shooting one of the small caliber HE shells out of one of the tanks. Likewise, the Hurricane is also a good upgrade to the 153, but I think the Hurricane is probably your best bet of all of the planes in rank 1, and that's because with the Hurricane, you're going to get a more capable plane overall. You're going to get 20mm Shavac cannons, which, if you've ever flown in War Thunder, they actually perform very well at dismantling planes. They are kind of low ammo, though, so you can't just sit on the trigger. But in addition to that, you're getting Russian 50 cals, and you're also getting those ROS-82 rockets. So, once again, if you've got friendlies on the ground that are marking targets, if you see masses of infantry, you can do some pretty significant damage. This used to be a Stalingrad plane, and in my experience there, it always performed very well. The MiG is dedicated air-to-air, and while it is faster, if you want a dedicated air-to-air platform, or if you're coming from War Thunder and the MiG-3 is one of your favorite planes, it's only 33,000 research, so you could go for it, but unless you need it to fill out your 9 slots, I would probably give it a pass. Moving on from there, let's look at the tanks. The T-60 we see a lot in game. It's okay. It's a starting tank. You're going to be very vulnerable. My best advice to you is, with any of these early tanks, you can play aggressively because some of them have decent speed. Like, you can go 30 kilometers an hour, which isn't terrible, but be careful. If you're going to push forward, you need to keep moving. Otherwise, I would play in the map, because your gun's not the most powerful, and you're going to need to maneuver around to get targets. You basically need to hit people's feet to kill them. and that goes for both of these. But you probably want to play a little bit further back. These tanks are often noob traps where people will get in them, they'll drive them up to the front, and the first guy with an explosive pack throws it on them and kills them. To that end, the BT-7 is highly mobile, and it has a larger cannon, 45mm, than the T-60. I would probably skip the T-26, mind you. The BT-7 plays really well into that mobility aspect that I mentioned, so you can go forward and you can reverse and you can move around, and so you can get decent angles on people to shoot them, and as long as you keep moving and you're aware of your surroundings, it's going to be kind of difficult for somebody to get an AT pack on you, but if you sit still, they're just going to throw one at you and you're going to go kaput. It is, of course, safer to play tanks from the rear, but if at all possible, I would play them forward, just because I think you get better shot opportunities. If you're going to play the passive hide-in-the-back gameplay, what you find at the end of the tier, the IS-2s, that's going to be much more your style, but that's because they have a very long reload and support a peek-a-boom playstyle. Moving on, we have mortars, and we have the T-70, and we have the TAS-B. More or less, I would pass on all of them. Obviously, you need them to progress the tree. Depending on what you like the most, I would place the highest priority on either the TAS or the T-70. And this really just depends, you probably should get all of the above. When we round out rank 1, I'll go over everything that I would get for my 9, but I would, yeah, okay, actually, we'll just start there. So I would get all 3 of the rifles up to the carbine. I would get the PPD-40 and the TAS-2B. I would get the PTRD and the mortar. You can use the mortar if you want. It's a lot better when you're attacking because you can shoot at objectives, and you have a ranging number that pops up to the objective and any mark that your allies put down. But if you're not playing in a group and you can't rely on your allies, if you're attacking, mortars work well because if you know what the objective is like, if it's an open objective, for example, you can just fire at the objective. If it's an enclosed objective, try to guesstimate in your head about how far you need to aim to hit near one of the entrances to the objective. So if it's a house, for example, and the point's in the middle of the house, well, houses aren't that big, so if you aim like 7 meters back or 10 meters back, you're probably hitting behind the house. Anyway, moving on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, I think all of these are important. You could choose to go for the planes instead of the tanks, or you could choose to forgo the AT weapons, but this is for future endeavors. Eventually you're going to need all of them. In general, planes counter tanks, so getting access to some of the rank 2 planes is super beneficial, especially because you'll be able to deal with some of the harder threats that you might come up against. Although, to be fair, German tanks aren't exactly the thickest at this BR, so you will probably be able to deal with them with side shots from your PTRSs, as long as you can maneuver out there, and if they ever get enclosed, explosive packs, AT mines, the whole 9 yards work really well. You don't, strictly speaking, need the planes yet, but later on, once we get to rank 4 and 5, you will need them. Moving on to rank 2, the first thing that I would get in rank 2 is the PPS-42. Now, whether you decide to buy and outfit your squads with PPS-42s or wait and get PPS-43s is entirely up to you. When it's fully upgraded, the PPS-42 is about a 690 round per minute fire rate, and the PPS-43 goes up to about 800. So the PPS-43 is generally going to be better in close-in scenarios where you're clearing buildings, but I was chatting with somebody the other day, and he was telling me he prefers the 42s because they're also good at clearing buildings, but if you need to shoot down the street, you need to hit somebody at range, the burst fire on this he feels is more consistent than the PPS-43. I've used both. They both feel very similar to me. most of my experience with the PPS-42 is using the red one from the spring event. I think it's really just personal preference. They're both pretty stable platforms. They have pretty similar stats. Obviously, recoil numbers are a little bit lower on the PPS-42. It fires a little bit slower, so you'll have less instances of that recoil that you have to manage. But one of these two would be my first target in rank 2. So I use the premium Russian paratroopers a lot. I've been using them at rank 2, and I've been giving them all PPS-43s, and they perform excellently. You can outfit your assault squad or your medic squad, because you will get an assault squad with the PPS-42, and you have a medic squad from here. You could outfit both of them with the PPS-42 or the 43, and when the free paratroopers come out, you can outfit either of them with these weapons. As far as the rifles go, I would be more willing to hold off on them for a little while. I don't think they're nearly as high of a priority. Once you've got the Mosin 1938 carbine, I think you're set for a while, because, at least in my Russian army, the competition for bolt-action, quote-unquote, rifles is between the M1938 and the Winchester 1895. So you're going to have to go through the Mosin 44 and the 9130 to get to the Winchester 1895. Now, as far as bolt actions go, and lever actions in this game are considered bolt actions, this is going to be your highest fire rate. If you like to run and gun as a rifleman, this is your go-to. The downside is that it doesn't have a bayonet, and the AI perform superbly with bayonets. They'll more or less stab at anything that comes within arm's reach of them. So if you have your AI sitting in a building and somebody runs through the door because they don't know what's in there, there's a good chance they're just going to get stabbed as soon as they come through the door. And that won't happen with the Winchester. But it will be more usable for you as a player, because you can pop off 5 shots very quickly, and it does load from stripper clips. So I think fully upgraded, it's got somewhere in the neighborhood of a 77 round fire rate. I actually might be able to check that. I don't know if I've got any fully upgraded ones sitting in my inventory. We have, okay, so 76 rounds. This isn't fully upgraded, but it's got the fire rate upgrade. But yeah, it does a pretty decent bit of damage. The recoil's manageable. The sights are pretty good. I like them a lot. The only downside is that they don't have bayonets, so it really just depends on what you want to use the squad for. Yeah, it just depends. Like, in an assault squad, I might put these on just because you can shoot them quickly. In a squad that's more like a normal rifleman squad, I would probably use the 38s on them, but you could use either. They're interchangeable. I wouldn't bother picking up the M44 or the 9130 because they're going to be 1,500 silver, so they're 3 times the price of the 38. And while you do get similar fire rate from the 44, I don't think it's worth the price increase when you're not realistically gaining much from it. You do have lower recoil vertically, but to be honest, I don't really notice recoil on my bolt actions. I mean, you're racking the bolt between every shot, so you're already breaking your sight picture. I just don't think it's worth the silver upgrade. You might be able to make an argument for the 9130, but I think you can do a lot of the same things that the 9130 does with the Mosin M91. It's basically just an upgrade on the M91, but I don't think you're gaining anything significant enough to merit picking it up. The exception here is the grenade launching Mosin. You can put these on all your riflemen. You're going to get a decent enough fire rate off of it. It starts at 52, and 15% on top of that should bring you almost up to 60, but you're getting the grenade launchers with that, which is the main reason why you pick it up. So The competition for rifles for me is between the M38, the grenade launcher, and the 1895. Personally, I just don't really care for grenade launchers, but if you like them, they can be devastating, and they also trigger people. So if you want to play like psychological games and you want to tilt people, then using these can be very effective. They also come with a Rifleman 2 squad, which can be worthwhile. Moving on, the M44 comes with a communication squad, which is worth prioritizing, if only so that you can call in artillery and upgrade it to get the smoke barrage. And moving down from there, the Madison's the first light machine gun you have available, and it's the only light machine gun that the Russians get at this BR. In general, it's worth getting to future-proof yourself for researching better machine guns later. But as far as rank 2 is concerned, it's not a good machine gun. You do get a machine gun squad with it that will let you upgrade your machine gunners, and if you have machine gunners in like your rifleman squad or your engineer squad, whatever, your assault squads, it's worth at least having a machine gun to put on them. But if you're thinking about running machine gun squads, I would caution you against using the Madison. It is the only option you have, but if, let's say you're a free-to-play player and you only have 4 slots, I would pick a tank or a plane, I would pick your assault squad, and then I would pick your engineer squad, and your last squad is kind of a flex slot, and if I'm stuck choosing between machine guns, medics, and like anti-tank, I'm going to choose either the anti-tank or the medics, because the medics are just another assault squad, and honestly the PPS 42 and 43 do the same job that the Madison does better. It just has far too much uncontrollable recoil. Like, the vertical recoil is not terrible. If you've got maxed out soldiers and you can get the horizontal reductions, it becomes a more usable gun. But if you're a new player and you're just hitting rank 2, the chances of you having a bunch of rank 5 machine gunners laying around is basically 0. So, at least for me, the Madison is a dodge, but it is something that you're going to need later on. So, I would get it, it just would not be the first thing that I get. Going down to AT weapons, the PTRS is fantastic. It's a semi-automatic rifle. If you've played other World War II games, I'm sure you recognize it. It does a ton of damage. You'll be able to one-shot anybody that you hit with it, and it pens 40 millimeters of armor at 5 meters and 30 at 100. So, most of the time you're still relegated to side shots on tanks. Some of the lighter tanks you can punch through weak points in the front of it, but in general you can get the side of a tank, and if you know where like the gunner, the driver, and the ammo are, you can usually kill most tanks in 2 to 3 shots. It's a common tactic for me if I've got the flank of a tank and he doesn't know that I'm there, to shoot the driver to stop it, and then put a round through the side of the turret and try to kill the turret crew that way. And then if it still hasn't blown up, either follow it up with an explosive pack or try to shoot out the ammo. But it is a fantastic anti-tank rifle. The only other anti-tank rifle, in my opinion, that's on par with this one is the Japanese 20mm, which is probably better, but this is pretty much even with that. The Germans and the Americans really have nothing that can compete with it as an AT rifle. As far as tanks go, the T-50 is phenomenal. Once you get the T-50, this is the only tank that I would use until you get probably the T-34-41. Maybe the KV-1. The T-28, if you like heavy tanks, it's a cool tank. I've driven some of my friends before. I run into them a lot in game. The issue that they have is their heavy, quote-unquote. Their armor does not hold up. They're very thin. They get penned by most things they come across. You will eventually need them if you're planning on pursuing further tanks, but it would not necessarily be my first choice. And as far as the planes go, the P-40 is fantastic, but it's foldered behind the Axe-7. The Axe-7 is going to perform similar to some of the earlier planes that you've seen. So you've got two 20 mil, or I guess you've got one 20 mil, you've got two Brezhnev 50 cals, you've got two 50 kilo bombs. It's mostly a fighter that has some light bombing. Now the P-40, or the P-40 rather, has a 250 kilo bomb, which for those of you on America measurements, that's a 500-pound bomb. And then you've got two 100 kilo bombs, so about 220s, so similar to the American 250s. And then you've got 6 Browning 50 cal machine guns. So it's going to perform very well in air-to-air combat. It's a relatively quick plane. It can turn decently. The bomb load is phenomenal for the BR. There are very few planes that can match it at this BR, especially because you don't drop all these bombs together. You drop the 100s and then you drop the 250, so you can potentially hit 2 different targets. And I'll try to include a screenshot that I took earlier, but I actually brought it in to a BR5 match that I was running earlier, and we were fighting over the train, and I bombed the end of the train, and I think I killed something in the neighborhood of 22 people. So it can be a very competitive plane, even playing up. The IL-2 1941 is another plane that performs very well. You get 4 50 kilo bombs, and in addition to that, you get 8 RBS-42 rockets, and you get 20 mils. It's basically the king of ground pounding, all of the IL-2 variants, and it's legendary amongst Soviet wartime war machines. I highly recommend it. This one does not have a tail gunner, but it performs alright. It's not very fast. It's got large wings, so it does turn pretty well. But, you know, watch your back. You're going to get intercepted a lot flying it. As far as the SB-2, you're getting 6 100 kilo bombs, so it also has a pretty substantial bomb load. None of the bombs individually are that big, but having 6 100s, if you place them in the right places, can be devastating. You can either come in and carpet bomb an area, or you can do multiple passes, dropping them in small sets. So, as long as you have marks and you kind of understand where you need to put them, you can do a lot of work with it. All the planes in this BR are fantastic. I think they perform pretty well against their German counterparts as well. The Germans have Ju-87s and Bf-109s at this BR, so it's decent competition for fighting their fighters. Ground pounding, they carry larger bombs, but they usually carry fewer of them. I think one of the Ju-87s has a 250 and 450 kilo bombs, so that's more on par with what you'd see on the P-40. You get an extra drop, but they're also smaller bombs in your extra drops. In general, you can't really go wrong with any of these. There's definitely an argument to skip the P-40 and just pick up the IL-2. I probably would skip on the Su-2, since you're effectively getting the same loadout that you're getting on the SB-2M, but the SB-2M is a fucking whale, so it's up to you. I think the IL-2 for ground pounding specifically will handle everything you want, and if you want a strike fighter, then I would pick up the P-40. As far as the entire set here, you need 7 of them to move on, so I would pursue the submachine guns first, but that's me specifically. I like assaulting, getting up in their face. I would definitely at least get the communications squad here. I would get the PTRS, the PTRS, and then I would get either the tanks or the planes, depending on which one you're more interested in. And this is assuming that you're just trying to burn through the tech tree as fast as you can. If you're not concerned with getting past rank 2, like if you plan on primarily playing rank 2 and you just want to grind out the rest of the tech tree, then I would get everything. in rank 2 before moving on, because you're going to get a lot more options and a lot more versatility that way. But if you're trying to move on as fast as you can, I would prioritize the assault line, I would prioritize the AT line, and then I would prioritize either the tanks or the planes, and then just fill in as you need. The machine guns later on are very good, but Russian assault squads are arguably second to none. So I would pursue them, and they can fill the role of your light machine guns in a pinch. Moving on to rank 3, there's some really, really powerful options here. This is where you get your first flamethrowers, this is where you get the Panzerfaust 60, it's where you get the legendary T-34s. What I would go with first, well, obviously it depends on what you came out of the previous tier with, but I would pursue the Panzerfaust first. Once you get to this BR, you're going to start seeing more and more tanks that are going to be playing further back. The Panzerfaust has 180 millimeters of penetration, so you can pretty much go through anything in the game that you're going to run into. If you shoot a Tiger II in the front, you're not going to go through it, but if you shoot it anywhere but the front, you're going to go through it, and pretty much any tank short of a Panzer or Tiger II, you'll go through without any issues. The only issue is aiming it. It has 3 aiming marks. I believe they're at 30, 60, and 90 meters. If you need to aim in between, then you're just going to have to eyeball it and aim up a little bit. They're pretty easy to use, though. But yeah, I would get the flamethrower first, and then get the Panzerfaust. After that, the SVT-38. If you're going to play in rank 3, the SVT-38 is quite good. It's worth having because most soldiers use rifleman weapons, and if I'm going to, like, let's say you don't plan on playing rank 2, you're going to play rank 3 when you get to it, and you're going to play higher, either because you're interested in throwing yourself into the hellstorm that's random matchmaking, or because you have higher BR premium squads, or whatever, right? Let's assume that you're going to play 3, 4, 5 matchmaking exclusively. Then, in that case, I would start with the M38 rifles, because almost everybody uses rifles, and then I would graduate from those to the SVT-38s. As far as submachine guns go, you get access to the PPSH box mag. It's a good gun. It's not a substantial enough upgrade over the PPS-43, though. You do shoot faster, but that also means that you reload more often. And it's an awesome submachine gun. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get it. You absolutely should research it, but I wouldn't buy them. Not unless you just are in love with the PPSH-41 for whatever reason. But I think you can save your silver. This is the first set of weapons that are going to cost you 3,000 silver, and when you realize that in a quick game you're probably getting 15 to 1800 silver, and on a long game you're getting like 4k silver, you're not going to really be able to afford a whole lot of 3,000 silver weapons early on. And if you have to choose between Panzerfausts and PPSHs, buy Panzerfausts. They're going to carry you a lot further. Likewise, I think the SVT-38s are going to do a lot more for you than the PPSH when you can get the PPS for 1,500. And that's the thing. If you don't need to level, or you don't need to equip all of your soldiers with SVT-38s right away. If you've got the M38 or you've got the Winchester already, that's perfectly adequate to leave on all of your longer range squads. So, like your AT guys, they can hang on to the bolt action rifles, or your sniper squads, they can hang on to the bolt action rifles, or your machine gun teams, they can hang on to bolt actions. But your squads that are going to be up close and getting stuck in, so your assault squads and your flamethrower squads, you absolutely want to give them semi-automatic rifles, just because when you're in a building, fire rate is going to be much more valuable than raw alpha damage. while these rifles can all put down a guy from 10 blocks down the road, and while these are going to need multiple shots to do that, when you go into a building, you're going to be able to fire so much faster with 320 rounds a minute versus 76, or versus 60... I can look. It's something in the mid-60s. 62. Moving on, the DP-27 is the first good light machine gun that you're going to get. It's the famous pie plate. It does its job. The recoil's alright, the reload's fine, the pie plate doesn't really get in the way your sights go over the top of it. I really don't have anything bad to say about it. It's a very average machine gun. It holds like 47 rounds in the magazine, which is really nice, and it reloads as a magazine, so the reload's pretty quick. I like them. If you've used the bar before, it's going to be similar to the bar in its fire rate and its recoil. It's going to shoot a little bit slower than a bar, but it's also going to hold more ammo. I like it. That's really all I have to say about it. It's not a bad pickup, and if you're going to start playing machine gunners, this is a good place to do it. The T-34s, they perform very well. I don't remember if this T-34 is a commander sight, though. I know there was a point in time where I played T-34s and one of them didn't have a commander sight. But both of the T-34s are fine. No problems here. They have 76mm guns. They reload relatively quickly. They have pretty good armor, and it's angled pretty well. You'll be able to deal with most of the normal tank threats that you come across that are rank 3 or lower. At rank 4 and up, you're going to struggle to kill those, but regardless, if you run into infantry, you're going to perform perfectly fine. This is a BR range, though, where if I were a free-to-play player, and I only had 4 slots, and I knew that I had the potential to play 3-4-5 matchmaking, and I was still going to play Tier 3, this is the point where I would start swapping my tanks for planes. Playing a tank can be fun if you play exclusively Tier 3 and you're top BR on your team. Then you can do absolutely filthy things with the T-34. But the same thing happens inversely if the other team is top BR, because they're going to start bringing in Panthers and Tiger 2s and Tiger 1s, and you're going to have a terrible time. So, in my opinion, I would research them, but if you're going to run rank 3, I would hesitate to put them on the lineup. The IS-237 is a pretty good plane. It has 37mm cannons. They perform alright. 100 kilo bombs, again, they perform alright. I would use the IL-2 1941 over this one. If you want to research the IL-2M, this one performs excellently, and this one actually has a tail gunner. So imagine you take all the good parts about the IL-2 1941 and you just make them better. So this is my recommended strike plane from here on. The LA-5N is an awesome air-to-air machine. If you want a fighter at this BR, I would absolutely use it. The PE-2s, they get good bomb loads. They get, well, the first one, at least, gets 600 kilo bombs. They are big. They are relatively quick for their size. They're not the most agile planes in the world. I would still use the IL-2M over the PE-2s, either of them. And the Yak-3 is all around a very good fighter. If you want bombs, you can take the LA-5N. If you just want a more powerful fighter that's going to fly a little bit faster and turn a little bit tighter, then the Yak-3 is an option. You get another mortar option here. It's a mortar. It basically performs like the other mortar. If you like mortars, you can upgrade to it. If not, you're not really missing out on anything. If you did go down the rifle grenade path, you get access to anti-tank rifle grenades here. I wouldn't consider them the most reliable thing in the world, but, you know, it's an option. You can take them if you wish. It's not something that I've really spent a lot of time doing. I guess the benefit is that you can throw them on your AT guys, but if your AT guys already have Panzerfausts, then I wouldn't really worry about it. The Sniper SVT-38 is an SVT-38 with a scope. If you're running snipers, it's an alright upgrade. Just remember, you're trading damage for fire rate. Depending on the objective and how far away you are from what you're sniping, it can be worthwhile, but in general, I think I would skip it. I think having the alpha of the 9130 sniper is more valuable to me personally. And I think that you get better options later with the ABS-36 if you want a semi-auto, and in its case, full auto sniper. So I would skip the SVT-38. You do get a squad with it. You do get Sniper 2s, but again, it's not a weapon that I would bother with. So my priority in rank 3, again, would be the ROX 2 and the Panzerfaust. And then I would look at the SVT-38 and the planes. Moving on to rank 4, the KV-1 is a very powerful tank. It is a battle rating 3 tank, but you research it in tier 4. If I was going to put a tank back on after not putting on the T-34s, and I had the KV-1, I would put it on. It's still going to get bullied pretty heavily, though. It's just, it has enough armor that if you angle it properly and you play carefully, you can probably make it survive for a little while. You might even be able to make it so the enemy has to bomb you. But remember, if you're running into Panthers and Tiger 2s, they're still probably going to just kill you. That being said, if you're playing exclusively BR3 and you play down, the KV-1, outside of it being bombed, is going to be borderline unkillable. There are times in the past in Stalingrad where I walked up to it, placed TNT charges on it, and used the little plunger to detonate them, or like threw the throwable ones on it, and it just did not explode. It just wouldn't take damage. So, it can be an exceptionally powerful tool. This is also the BR where you get the Panzerfaust 100, which is your best anti-tank weapon in your tech tree. It has 220 mils of armor penetration, putting it at the highest armor pen for a man-portable AT weapon in the game. I highly, highly recommend you pick it up. This anti-tank weapon is so good that you can go through the front of a Tiger 2H with it. So, once again, in this Tier 4, I would be prioritizing the Panzerfaust 100, especially in Tier 4, because if you're playing in Tier 4, you're going to be seeing Tier 5 every game, which means you're going to be running into Panthers, Tiger 1s, Tiger 2s. You will need this. As far as following that up, the DPM I don't believe is worth it, but it leads to one of the better machine guns, the DT-29. So this would not be a high priority route for me because you already have the DP-27 and it fulfills the same role as these. But the DT-29 is a very good gun. It has very similar performance to both of the other ones. It has a little bit less recoil, but the same fire rate, but it also holds a lot more ammo. It's, I think, it's 63 rounds. I don't know why I thought it was 73. Like I said, this would not be my first priority, but this is a very good machine gun. The PPD-34, though, I would absolutely research, and this would be my first upgrade over the PPS-42 or 43, whichever one of these two you chose to invest in. It is a 3,000 silver weapon, but you're getting the same fire rate stock as the PPS-43 gets fully upgraded, and you're getting a 71 round drum on it. It is a phenomenal weapon, and I cannot recommend it enough. As far as rifles go, if you want to get into the Tier 5 rifles, you're going to have to get the SVT-40. As far as putting it on a squad, if you've got the SVT-38, then I don't think the SVT-40 is a significant enough upgrade over the SVT-38. If you didn't get the SVT-38, or you researched them but you didn't buy them, then you could go to the SVT-40. Like, if you play rank 2 exclusively until you research rank 4, then I would skip buying anything in rank 3. I would just research them, and then I would buy the rank 4s when you unlock the rank 4s, and then you can start playing rank 4s. Because rank 4 plays up into rank 5 very competitively, but rank 3 does not play into rank 5 well. The benefit to rank 3, though, is when you get lucky and you play down, you get to be the top dog, but I'm just giving you a theoretical, if that's the way that you choose to pursue researching things. But I would not buy both the 38 and the 40, one or the other. They're too similar. The 40 does a little bit more damage, the recoil is pretty similar, the fire rates are pretty similar. You're just not gaining enough to merit outfitting squads with both of them when they cost 3,000 silver each. And like I said before, I wouldn't even bother with any of the SVT snipers. The Rox 3 flamethrower is pretty good. There were flamethrower nerfs the other day, but this is one of the top tier flamethrowers, which have extended range. So, while it is nerfed, it's still going to be a significant upgrade off the base flamethrower, and if you like flamethrowers at all, then this one is going to be the one worth using. And as far as tanks go, the T-34-85, D5T, and the T-34-85 are both good tanks. The D5T is not nearly as good as the 85, but if you didn't put the KV-1 on at rank 3, and you want to come back to playing tanks after, say, switching to planes, either of these would be a good tank to put back on, and of course you need them if you're going to pursue the late game heavy armor. They can punch through most of the targets that they're going to come up against. They have, at least the T-34-85, the second one, has pretty good armor. Having 90 mils on the front of the turret is pretty significant. You're still going to be vulnerable, like all tanks are, to being bombed, to explosive packs, to AT mines, and most of the Axis guns can pen you, but you have good enough armor that if you angle it, or if you hide yourself well and obscure yourself, you can be somewhat survivable, particularly with the T-34-85. If you can find a place to block the hull of your tank and just expose the front of your turret, you have the potential to survive some incoming fire, but don't expect your tank's armor to hold up too well. And if you're playing forward, you may have a difficult time. Especially at this BR. This is the BR where you really start to see gray zone camping become the way of tanking, because things like the Panzerfaust 100 become available to the Germans, and the Offenrohr becomes available to the Germans. And by now, most people have invested in explosive packs and AT mines, so it becomes a much more hostile world for tanks out there. As far as the planes go, if you're dedicated to shooting down planes, the Yak-9T is fantastic. The 37mm cannon can destroy wings. If you see enemy bombers coming in, it is the perfect interceptor to go up and shoot down all of the enemy bombers before they get there. You just be careful. You don't have a lot of ammo on the cannon, so you can't just sit there and fire it off all willy-nilly. You're going to have to fire like 2 or 3 shots at each plane, and max of like 5 shots on each plane. You can obviously hold down the trigger a lot more against a player because they're a much greater threat, but it's a good plane. I like it. The Boston, the issue with the Boston is that while you get 50 cals, I'm pretty sure they're in the nose, or they're like situated right around the nose in these little inlets. The problem with the Boston is that you have better planes for ground attack work. This only carries for 100 kilobombs. You have this one all the way down here that carries 6. The IL-2M is still going to be your best ground attacker at this rank. The PE-2 carries more ordnance, so it's necessary to get to the IL-10, but it's not a plane that I'm interested in, hence why I haven't reacquired it. I'm pretty sure I already have it from pre-merge, but these are squads that, because I haven't researched up here yet, I haven't gone back to pick them up. So, my priority in rank 4 would be to get to the Panzerfaust 100, and to get to the T-34-85. Beyond that, it's all personal choice. You need 6 things total, and if you get the Panzerfaust 100 and you get the T-34-85, that's going to put you at 5. Alternatively, if you go through the planes, that's going to put you at 4. Either way, the other... well, and the PPD. I think I failed to mention that. So yeah, I would go Panzerfaust, PPD, or PPD Panzerfaust, whichever one you prefer, and then I would do the tanks. And then you can get to the other options at your leisure, whatever you prefer. If you like flamethrowers more than machine guns, then get the ROX 3. If if you have 5 and you need 6, you can get the SVT, because you can go into the AVS-36, which is phenomenal. It's really personal preference at this point, because you're going into the final tier. Now, in the final rank, the AVS-36, I think I have mine equipped, so I probably can't pull them up. I have some from an event squad back in the day. Let me find my flamethrowers. So, the AVS-36, I guess they're not fully upgraded, are they? Mildly unfortunate. Yeah, alright, well, it's an automatic rifle. It can be semi-auto or full auto. It holds 15 rounds in a magazine. It does a decent chunk of damage. I think it'll get close to 15 when you fully upgrade it. It fires 600 rounds a minute. If you upgrade them, you'll get a little bit more fire rate, so probably close to 660. If you got the SVT-38s, you could upgrade to the AVS, but I would also point out that you're so close to getting the AVT-40, you could alternatively hold out for the AVT-40. It's really personal preference. They're very similar guns. I get AVT-40s because I actually have them researched from before the merge, and because I've got AVT-40s, I just don't care enough to go back and get the AVS, but the AVS does a little bit more damage. The recoil is very similar. The horizontal is actually better on the AVS. The vertical's marginally worse, but the fire rate's about the same. They basically cost the same, so it really just comes down to what you prefer. If it were me, going through the rifles, I'd go carbines. Then if you're going to stay at rank 2, you could get the Winchesters. If you're going to go straight to rank 3, get the SVT-38s. And then from there, you can go and get the AVS-36s. If you plan on playing a lot of rank 4 and you skipped rank 3, you could go from the Winchesters to the SVT-40s. And then if you've got the SVT-40s, you could hold out for the AVT, but I wouldn't get both the AVS and the AVT, just like I wouldn't get the SVT-38 and the SVT-40. I would probably just research the AVS-36 and get this, and then I would wait and come back to the AVT-40 later. I don't think you're getting a substantial enough upgrade to merit getting the AVT-40, and it doesn't come with a squad. Whereas these do come with your rifleman, or your radio operator 2s. As far as snipers go, after the 9130 sniper rifle, this would be the first sniper upgrade I would take. I like having the alpha of a bolt-action sniper, but having the flexibility to flip your gun into full auto is invaluable. So, if, for example, you go out to a flanking position, you set up your little snipey hole, you sit down, you start shooting them, and all of a sudden they decide that they're going to come charging in on you, or a squad of paratroopers come landing next to you. You can flip it onto fully auto. It has both a sight or a scope and a set of sights, so if you single tap on your right click, you can look down the sights, and if you hold, you can look down the scope. So you can flip it on full auto, look down the sights, and mow them all down as they land next to you. It's just a bit of flexibility that you don't get with the bolt action, but it's giving you more power than going to the semi-autos. I feel like you lose too much damage for the semi-autos to be truly worth it, whereas having the full auto option makes this one more viable. Looking at submachine guns, the PPD-40 is good, but you have so many strong options in Tier 5 that I would absolutely pursue this line. This is probably the first line I would go for, but I would not buy the PPD-40. The PPSH-41 comes right after it, and it's the best submachine gun in the Russian Techtree. It fires at 1,000 rounds a minute, it's got a 71 round drum mag. It's worth it in every way. It is the premier weapon for sweeping the streets and cleaning out the houses. It won't be the best weapon for shooting down the street, but if you're going from building to building, it'll get you from one building to the next one, and it will absolutely clear any room in that building for you. The Fedorov is also a very powerful weapon and necessary because it comes with your last assault squad with your Assaulter 4s. I like them. They get a 12% reload speed bonus. I actually also like the Assaulter 3s because they get more health restored, so your med kits can go further and give you more value. The Assaulter 4s are going to give you slightly more stats to play with for your perks, but the Assaulter 3s cost a lot less, and I think that their starting perk is pretty good. So, that one's up to you. The Fedorov itself is good. It's got a decent fire rate. It does pretty good damage. That's actually going to be the main distinction here. So it has, I believe, a 25 round magazine, and it does 10.5 damage base. The follow-on weapon does 8 damage, and it shoots a little bit faster. So if you've ever used an AK-47 in another game, the AS-44 is going to feel right at home in your hands. And if you ever played Battlefield 1, the Fedorov is going to feel right at home in your hands. Really, the difference between these two is damage and a little bit of fire rate, but it's so close that it's really just a little bit of damage. You can use whichever one you like more. I like the AS-44s because I like AKs, but I am outfitting a squad with Fedorovs. And to be fair, you have enough assault squads that if you really want to, you can outfit a squad with PPSHs, one with Fedorovs, and one with AS-44s. That's actually exactly what I'm doing. So if I'm planning on assaulting a tight objective, I can pull out the PPSH-41s. If I expect it to be longer ranged, I can pull out the Fedorovs. And if I don't know what it's going to be, or it's going to be a bit of both, or I just feel like using AKs, then I'll pull out the AS-44s. You can't really go wrong with any of them. I suppose the last benefit to the AS-44 is that it is a bayonet, and like I mentioned with the bolt actions earlier, having bayonets on AI is valuable because your AI will try to stab pretty much anything that comes within arm's reach of them, and usually those stabs are one-shot kills. So this is probably the single most valuable line from start to finish at all tiers for the Soviets. Although you could argue that at top tier it's going to be your second most valuable tree, second only to your armor. Moving on to the RD-44, I actually just recently got this one. It's basically your... If the AS-44 is your not an AK, then the RD-44 is your not a PKP. It's a 100-round belt-fed machine gun. It performs exceptionally well. It feels pretty stable. I have nothing bad to say about it. I like the DT-29 a lot. I like the RD-44 more. It's absolutely worth suffering through the Madison just to get this machine gun. Beyond that, you get the BM-41 mortar. It's a mortar. It's a bigger mortar. It's not bad. If you like the playstyle of using mortars, it's worthwhile to pick up. If you're not a mortar player, you're not really missing out on anything. Then coming to tanks, the Su-85 is effectively going to be an up-armored T-34 85, but hull-locked. It's got 75 armor on, or 75 mils of armor on the whole front, which is going to outdo the 45-90 split that you have here. Obviously the 90 is going to be more raw armor, but this is pretty much sloped everywhere, and it covers the whole front of your tank, whereas you have to hide your hull to effectively use the T-30-45. Would I use it? I don't really like hull-locked tank destroyers. There's a single exception to that in this game, and that's the Jagdpanther. But other than that, personally, I'm not a huge fan of hull-locked tank destroyers, but I've seen people use them very effectively. So it won't do you wrong to pick it up. It might give you more survivability than the T-34-85, but it is going to be more clunky to use, and you need to be more strategic and plan your moves more effectively, because your gun is linked to your entire tank's movement. As far as the IS-1, this one I absolutely would use. It's up-armored, and it's basically going to be, if you take the T-34-85 D5T, and you slap a lot more armor on it, there you go, IS-1. The IS-2 is, I think, an interesting tank. I think if you have it, the play is probably to use it. But this comes with a caveat that this has the same armor as the IS-1, and you're giving up a lot of fire rate for a much bigger shell. From my experience in War Thunder with it, it's very much so a peekaboom playstyle where you want to hide and cover where no one can see you while you reload, and then when you're getting close to finishing your reload, you want to pull out so that you can stop and get the gun stable and fire it as the reload's finishing. So you do need to be conscious of your surroundings and know what obstacles are there so you can move around quickly, because you want to minimize your exposure. The kinds of vehicles that you're going to see on the Axis side when you're in one of these can absolutely punch right through you. And moreover, all of the AT soldiers that the Axis have can punch right through you with their Panzerfausts. So you're tying up a lot of eggs in one basket that doesn't fire particularly quickly. The IS-244 tries to fix some of the issues, but I'm not sure that it does. You do get your little cope cage, but in my experience shooting Panzerfausts at these, you kill them just as easily. So it's cool to research it. It's a neat tank. I would use it if I had it, but I think you might get better mileage out of the IS-1 just because you're going to have better fire rate, and you can go through a lot of the targets that you're going to come across with the 85mm cannon. You can use the IS-2 though as well. It'll go through most of your targets as well, and you absolutely will kill hordes of infantry if you land a shot near them. Just bear in mind that you have a very slow reload, and you have all the vulnerabilities that you've already been experiencing, but now you don't have a gun to fire as frequently. Moving on to planes, the LA-7 is a pretty good fighter. It's the IRL upgrade to the LA-5, or like the successor, maybe not the upgrade. You're still competing with the Yak-3 and with the Yak-9T. I think it is a sufficient upgrade over the Yak-3, and you're also getting access to 2 of the 100 kilo bombs, so you do get some decent strike potential. As far as dedicated plane hunting though, the 37mm cannon is probably going to destroy planes faster, assuming that you can get guns on with them, but the LA-7 is a significantly faster plane by almost an entire 100 kilometers an hour, and it has very similar turn capabilities. So the choice is up to you. It's really just firepower versus versatility. I think you get more out of the LA7 as far as like ground striking potential, and I think it's a better jack of all trades. And then there's the IL-10. And the IL-10 I would run, but I think it competes very closely with the IL-2M. The IL-2M carrying 4 100 kilo bombs and also carrying 4 RBS rockets. It's a very potent loadout that gets you multiple drops that lets you hit different target zones. So if you've got somebody marking for you and you know that you're pretty accurate with your weapons, you can get a mark, take out whatever's there, and then hold the rest of your ordnance on the IL-2M. Bear in mind, you are going to be slower, but on the IL-10, you're going to get 23mm cannons, and you're going to get 250 kilo bombs, so you'll be able to deliver a bigger bang for your buck. It allows you to be more carefree, or less precise with your bombs if you're trying to take out, say, a Tiger 2H. But I don't necessarily know that it's the best plane for the job. Its higher speed is going to give you more survivability, and the 23mm cannons are good against both planes and infantry on the ground. But I think that there's a lot of value that can be gained by bringing in IL-2M with multiple drops. But it depends on the kind of player you are. If you're experiencing lots of battles where airspace is highly contested and you're getting like one drop in and then a fighter pounces on you consistently and kills you, then the IL-10 is probably the better plane because you're able to drop a bigger bomb load in one pass. But you can still make that same argument for the IL-2 because you can come in and you can point your nose at like 3 different areas and go and shoot your rockets in one, shoot your rockets in another one, and drop your bombs somewhere in the middle, and potentially still hit multiple targets. But the IL-10 might be the better plane in those scenarios just because it's in, drop your bombs, done. As far as getting through the whole tech tree, like I said, I would prioritize the assault tree. I would prioritize the anti-tank weapons. I would prioritize either the tanks or the planes. You could do both. You could switch back and forth. I think, again, if you only have 4 slots, then having the plane is going to be more valuable to you because you can counter things with the plane. But from a fun standpoint, you may have more fun with the tanks. There are lots of times where I'll get in a plane and I'll feel useless because there's one target that I went up there specifically to take out, I got it, and now my teammates aren't marking stuff, and so I'm stuck staring out the window, or I'm trying to guess where I would be if I were the enemy on the ground, and sometimes you'll get lots of kills that way and sometimes you won't, but planes perform much better when you have somebody to coordinate with on the ground. I'm not going to review every single premium squad while we're here, but of the ones that are listed down here, if there's any special mentions, they would be the AS-44 squad. I have them, I like them. They basically perform like a 5-man assault squad with the AS-44 Model 5, but these ones have bipods instead of bayonets. If they go on sale in the coming sale, you could consider them. If you like machine guns, the people that I've seen with the belt-fed DP look like they're doing pretty well. Maybe that's an option for you. The AS-44 paratroopers, I put a review out yesterday for, and they're phenomenal. I highly recommend them. I don't think I would get a sniper premium squad again. I have the ones in the Pacific. They're okay, but it would not be my first choice. As far as armor goes, I would go for the SU-100 over the T-3485E. Don't get me wrong, this is a really good-looking tank. I love the way it looks with the striping and with the cope cages, but it's not exactly giving you anything that you can't already get, whereas the SU-100 is giving you a 100mm cannon on a tank destroyer platform with the same kind of armor as the SU-85. But this will do very well. you'll be able to pop most of the vehicles that you come up against with it, so it's a good option. Fedorov MGs are good. I think they look goofy because they have these bipods deployed all the time. I think having the barrel shroud is kind of neat, but effectively what you're getting is a Fedorov, but the MG variant. I don't have them. I'm not sure how they're affected by moving and shooting. Some of the LMGs in this game lose a lot of dispersion if you're moving and shooting. The PPSH-41 Parkerized, I would absolutely go with. It's similar to the AS-44s, except PPSH-41s. There's a common theme here with Russian premium squads in that they take a weapon that you get in the Techtree and they modify it a little bit, and they give you a 5-man squad that runs around with it. I guess the benefit of the Fedorov MG is that it's a machine gun team, so you can build the heavy machine guns with them. These two being assault squads don't really have that same benefit, although the squad itself, they're naval infantry, so they have really nice looking uniforms. It is a PPSH squad though, so if you want to clear buildings, they'll do an excellent job for you. I don't know if that's currently available. Since it's listed here, I'm going to assume that it is. That's a flamethrower tank. It's a rank 1 vehicle, and it's the only way for you to get flamethrowers in rank 1 and rank 2, so if you're dedicated to running rank 1 and rank 2 and you want flamethrowers, it's probably worth it. It's a fun little tank, but mind you, it gets destroyed by everything. It's relatively mobile, it's got a machine gun and a flamethrower. The flamethrower's got pretty good range, but you aren't really going to be killing other tanks, and you don't really have armor. I think the AK-9K is a pass for me. I don't really like plane premiums because most of them don't have sufficient strike capabilities, and this is going to be dedicated to shooting down planes. Now, if you find that people are calling in bombers all the time, and you want to capitalize on that sweet, juicy bomber XP, and this goes on sale, because I would not buy it full price, then that's an option. You get a similar experience with the AK-9T. Bombers do give a lot of XP, though, because they're counted as being vehicles, and you can shoot down planes with this. So if that's your playstyle, it's an option. The P-63 effectively does the same thing. The Su-76, I probably would not pick up. It's rank 3. Rank 3 is in a terrible spot right now, playing up and down, and you're open-topped, and I'm not convinced that the Zis-3 will do well enough playing up against rank 4s and 5s to be relevant. If it was a rank 2, I would consider it. You're still going to be vulnerable being open-top, but at rank 3, I think this would be a terrible purchase, unless you just absolutely love Su-76s. But I think otherwise, I think it'll be a very frustrating experience for people who use it. The PPSH-2s, I actually think I'm going to pick up when they next go on sale. They're a really cool squad. They're one of the 2 female squads in the game. It's a squad of all females, they're medics, and I just think it's really cool. I like when games take aspects of history that are less well represented, and they build on those and popularize them. So there's the Night Witch's Poe 2, and it's really cool. It's a bit of a novelty, but this squad is actually good. So from a premium squad standpoint, they're good, so they're worth using. But I also think that they're cool because they highlight a point in history that some people know about, but a lot of people either don't, or they don't realize some of the roles that they were put in. It's not like Battlefield 5's preview where they pull out a bunch of ahistorical garbage. It's like if you highlight the females in the Russian army, or the French resistance, or the Polish resistance, or in the Yugoslavian resistance, right? There are some absolute heroes to their people there that deserve to have their stories told, and it's really cool to see that in game. The BM-8, it's got, I believe, the same, yeah, M8 rockets, so it's like a Katusha on tracks. It's a rocket battery. I don't see them a whole lot, so I don't really know how well they perform. I can't really recommend it or not recommend it. I imagine it probably does alright at killing infantry. The ones in Normandy do pretty well, or ones formerly in Normandy do pretty well, but these are smaller rockets than the Panzerwerfers. It's probably more similar to the Calliope. But I'm pretty sure that you're not getting a machine gun, so you're just relying on the rockets. If it's on sale and you have a thing for rocket artillery, it might be worth getting. The Mosin 44 Lates, this came with the Elite Starter Pack back in the day when I picked it up. I don't know if that's still a thing. They're fine rifles. They perform similar to the Mosin M44 carbine in the Techtree. It's a 9-man rifleman squad. You're not getting anything special there. No engineers, no, specialists. I kind of wish they would change that, but it is what it is. The PPT-27 also came with the Elite Starter. This gun is, it's deceptively good. You first look at it, and you see that it shoots 1,240 rounds a minute, and, ooh, that looks pretty good! And then you see it's got a 21-round magazine, and then it's kind of like, ugh, that's kind of low. But you can burst fire it and have a lot of success at short and some mid-range. The thing that I like about it is that when you do run it out of ammo, it has a bolt hold open, and then it also has like a button, I think it's this one right here, that your guy hits, and it's a bolt release. So it has a really quick reload. You don't have to, rack your slide every time you want to, or rack your bolt every time you want to reload it. It's like, stick the mag in, press the button, and start shooting. So, it is faster if you don't run it out of ammo, but if you do run it out of ammo, it's not a bad reload. And the BA-11, it's got the same 45mm cannon that you're going to find on the T-50, but it has virtually no armor. The reason why I picked it up is because I figured I'm never going to get a BA-11 in War Thunder, and I was figuring if I can get it in Enlisted, I'm going to get it in Enlisted because it's a cool vehicle. It's an armored car, and it looks like it drove right out of, fantasy. The cannon performs respectably, the armor does not. If people want to kill you, they're going to kill you, but it can be a fun little car to drive around in. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the Russians. I highly recommend that you get your paratroopers done, your free ones. They're going to be amazing. You do not want to miss out on these guys. They can swap out their primaries, so you can use them at whatever BR you want. Yeah, that's about it for progression-wise. I don't think there's anything else that we failed to go over. So let me know down below if you've started playing Russia, if you're going to start playing Russia when you get your paratroopers. Maybe you hate Russia and you never want to touch them ever. Let me know why you feel that way, because I actually think they perform very well in game. But yeah, get out there, kick ass, take names, and win your games.